Welcome to Crash Class. And you may be wondering what today's episode is about because you are seeing pristine waters and Eden green lined mountain, and behind me is the harbor. So is it a vacation? Is it a destination location? No. Have you ever wondered how objects actually float? There is an ancient Greek scientist by the name of Archimedes who studied why objects float. And there are two rules basically, which is gravity and buoyancy. And then there's also displacement. You will be hearing a lot of terms and maybe they may sound confusing initially, but please allow me to explain. What Archimedes is actually saying, we know that gravity is a downward force, and we understand that buoyancy is an upward force. Buoyancy is what causes object to float, and gravity, we know that downward force. Have you ever put a block of ice or a few blocks of ice in a glass of water and you realize that the water level would rise up, yes? What actually is happening there? Or maybe you're in your bathtub and you just sit there and you realize that, okay, the water level will increase as well. What is happening there? That is just displacement. So do you understand what happens when you put ice in water? Let's do an experiment. Bring your glass. You can fill it about 3/4 with water and then bring about 4 blocks of ice. And let's see what happens. The water level will rise, yes? Correct, because the ice will cause displacement. The ice will have to actually find its spot, and that will cause the water to move. That is actually displacement. And does size really matter? That's a good question. If I were to throw my gold ring in that water, it will sink, and it's relatively small. And we are on a boat today, and the boat is floating. So does size really matter? The ring will displace the water. The first boat to be dated in history is the Pesci canoe. An archaeological report dates boats back to 8,000 BC. And some say boats existed longer than 8,000 BC. In the King James Version of the Bible, there are 37 quotes about boats and 1 quote about ship. Now, the interesting question of the day, what is the actual difference between a boat as opposed to a ship? Now, you may enlist and you will say, okay, when I think about boats, I think about canoes, I think about kayaks, I think about pedal boats, I think about rowboats. And when I think about ship, I think about, oh my God, a cruise liner. I think about the Titanic. So, but what is the actual difference? Is it size? And there's another quote that explains the difference that say that a boat can fit in a ship, but a ship cannot fit in a boat. However, the arguments is long debated, and today we are not going to argue about the real difference between a boat and a ship, but we'll understand how they actually work. So do you now understand how boats float? So although boats weigh a lot, it displaces a huge amount of water that weighs even more. Understanding density is also important. But your second question would be, how boats move? There are no wheels. How are they moving on the water? It is the propeller. So the propeller in rotation will have a thrust. The thrust will be the force, and because of the rotation of the propeller, the thrust will move the boat forward, and we'll understand how boats move. It's also important for us to understand different parts of the boat. The front of the boat is known as the bow. The back of the boat is known as the stern. So, are you thinking about having a romantic getaway or just a luxury cruise or just understanding the island? We are on the island of Trinidad. We just left cruising Chagaramas. But don't you think aboard this luxurious boat, it is time for us to see the captain? Yes, we are on Spectrum Charters with Ian Bowes. Let's talk to the captain, El Capitan. We are going into Scotland Bay, and to the left of me will be the most northwestern part of Trinidad. And where we came from, that is the Gulf of Paria. And behind me there is the Caribbean Sea. And oh my goodness, it is so beautiful because to the right of me, you can see Monos Island. And we are afloat, Spectrum Charters. And we are with Ian Bowes, the captain of Spectrum Charters. And Ian, first I must say I envy you because I'm looking around and the surroundings with the golden sand and the caves and the trees, and it's just so enchanting.
Yes, it is.
Ian, tell me about the services that you offer.
Oh, Okay, well, we offer both day cruises and evening cruises. Our day cruises, we take a maximum of 8 people, and we do a 3-hour or 4-hour down the islands cruise. On evenings, we do a sunset cruise.
Oh, that must be very beautiful.
It is.
You know, many persons see the luxury of a yacht and say, oh my God, they dream of having a yacht. But there's so much more involved than just owning the yacht, but operating, managing, the daily maintenance, the weekly maintenance, the monthly maintenance. Tell the viewers, what is actually involved in owning and managing and even running a yacht?
Well, first thing you have to know that BOAT stands for Bring Out Another 1,000.
Oh, I like that acronym. BOAT, bring out another 1,000.
Yes, because it's quite expensive.
Yes.
Maintenance really is the key, preventative maintenance. So just like an airplane that has, you have to check certain things depending on how long they're being run, you have to do that the same thing on a boat, especially the engine. Yes. Change your oil every 200 hours, check everything, your coolant, everything. Plus, because the boat is sitting in the water, the bottom of the boat needs to be maintained on a weekly basis.
That's the hull?
Yes. A diver has to go under there and clean the hull, so that it doesn't get all the barnacles and so on. Because once the bottom of the boat is very dirty, it affects the speed of the boat.
Ian, I do understand that the safety of your passengers is your ultimate goal.
Yes.
However, what are the rules of the road?
Well, the rules of the road when it comes to boats is that the traffic lights of the sea are the lights on the boat. So the right side of the boat is called the starboard, and that has a green light, and the left side of the boat is called the port, and that has a red light. So of course, what do you do when you see a red light? Stop. And a green light is to go.
Yes.
So depending on the direction that you're going, and you see another boat or ship crossing your path in either direction, they're either seeing your red light or your green light. If they're seeing your green light, they have the right of way. I need to stop and let them pass. If they're seeing my red light, then I have the right to way because I'm seeing their green. But that all depends on the size of the two boats, right?
Yes.
I will always give way to a larger vessel, regardless of if I have the right to way or not.
So Ian, even though it's a big open space, there are so much rules of the road, yes? So you explained to me about the red light and the green light, but is it the same mechanism as with a car? Does it stop immediately, or is there an engagement of a period when the boat will actually stop?
Right, that's a very good question. Of course, there is a period of time that it will take for a boat to stop. And the brakes of a boat is actually its gears. So if you really wanted to stop as fast as possible, you'd actually pull the boat into reverse. So the propellers now push the boat backward, and that would stop the boat quicker than you like. But you never want to be able to do that because you should always be traveling at a safe speed in any case.
What is the safe speed on the waters?
Right, a safe speed, depending on where you are, like entering a harbor or leaving a harbor, in fact, you must always drive at a speed that is safe to everyone around you as well as your people on board, your passengers on board.
But Ian, safe may be relative. What I may consider safe, you may not consider safe. But is there average speed on the waters?
So different boats have different idle speeds. So when it comes to a safe speed, it is the safest speed that you can drive at that does not create, first of all, a big wake. And a wake is the waves that the boat produces, because you don't want to rough other boats up, especially coming into a marina where they have boats. People are there on their boats, liveaboards. You don't want to rock them up. And also for the safety of people around. They have a lot of people in dinghies coming out of marinas and, fishermen in pirogues and so on, that they need to see you and avoid you, and you need to see them and avoid them in the best amount of time, the quickest amount of time. So therefore you have to drive at a speed that will allow you to do that.
Yes, a lot of consideration is also needed. Ian, is it true that with the sailboat, as long as their sail is up, they have the right to way?
All the time. They always have the right to way once their sails are up.
So if their sails are down, it's a power boat?
Yes. Once they have a sailboat can also become a power boat once their sails are down and they are in motion. Once their sails are up and they're in motion, they have the right of way regardless. The main objective is to avoid a collision at all costs. So regardless of if you have the right of way, you need to take action to prevent a collision.
Ian, I noticed that this can be a houseboat. I noticed the luxurious bed, the furniture, the kitchenette. So now I need to ask you the question that I'm going to put you on the spot now. What is your best experience on the water?
My best experience, especially on this boat, is waking up with my wife, Caroline, in Shaka Shikari on a morning. It is the best. Just the two of us. Sometimes it's just the two of us down there. Nobody else around except the birds, the dolphins, and the lovely water.
So now we understand how boats float, how they move, and the rules of the road. So don't be scarred by the events of 1912, in particular the Titanic, which was believed to be unsinkable, but it sank. Why? Because it collided with the iceberg, not because of any mechanical problems.